Alrighty. Nikki recommended a couple of movies. Let's get into them.
Hi everyone. So the movies we're going to be talking today are Alien and Aliens by Ridley Scott.
Let's go.
I'm just going to start off
Well,
with a
the
little.
I thought
aliens
we
is
were
by John
watching
Cameron.
Aliens in the Attic.
Yes. Please, when?
I'm just going to start off with a little short film synopsis about aliens to just get started. The story is about a crew of explorers in the Nostromo on their way back to Earth when the ship picks up a distress call from a nearby vessel. The crew explores the vessel only to have one of their crew members get attacked by like an organism inside of an egg, which makes him fall into a coma. And they bring him back in, trying to find out if they can, help him and stuff. And that's when the true terror comes.
Yeah. Remember, this is a spoiler conversation, everybody, so we're
Oh, yes.
not going to hold back at all. So if you haven't seen the movie, piss off and then come back. No. Yeah, we're not gonna spare any details. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue.
Oh no, all good. That was just my film synopsis of the first movie.
All right. Well, I think we should also just start with basic thoughts so we can all get a feel of how we basically feel about each movie. And since it's your recommendation, we'll just start with you, Nikki, if that's okay.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
This was actually my second time watching the movie, and I think I liked it better on the second watch. Um, I actually watched this movie with Xander earlier this week, and it was like what I had mentioned was that it was a slow burn, but I thought that's what made the second half really good because it doesn't just jump right in with like the xenomorphs and like everyone just freaking out on the ship. It takes its time to build up that like terror. So when you finally do see the xenomorph like in its full form, it's like a memorable scene and you're terrified basically. Like I just like how they like take their time really to kind of like speed up with everything.
Completely agree. We'll just
Yes.
I'll go last this time because I went first last time. Next. So you know what, Vinny, you take it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So obviously, it's probably impossible to come across like anybody in like the cultural film landscape who hasn't at least heard of Alien. But it's a sci-fi classic. It basically created its own genre, like its own subgenre in the horror like field. Like before this, like there weren't all that many. Like I don't know, did Dark Star come out before this or after? I don't remember. But like
Look it up.
yeah, I have no idea, but like Ridley Scott, the fact that this was also like his first like feature is like wild. Oh no, actually it's not his first feature. The Duelist was. But like still for a second feature, it's still it's what it works about it is how restrained it is. And it's a sci-fi movie that really like understands like how to properly engage an audience with horror in that there's so much that is unexplained in the film, and yet what we are given is all this like really like clever details with like how the universe works, how the characters function with each other, and like all of this like just all these characters bouncing off of each other and essentially because like what Nikki said, like the first hour of this is basically like we don't see the alien until like 50 minutes into the film, like the xenomorph. And like that whole first 50 minutes is like establishing the world, establishing these characters, like their conflicts, how their company feels about them, and like how they treat their workers. And that all that build up in that first half, especially when you watch it again, there's just so many extra details that you pick up on that second watch. And it's very rare that we see that, especially in an alien film, because because of how horrendous this franchise has devolved over the
Yeah.
Alien
past couple
Covenant.
decades.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's
right.
true. Actually, Alien Covenant is the best of the franchise. So
It's incredible.
yeah, but yeah,
Let me
I love
stick
this
my
film.
face right in the alien egg. I guarantee you it'll be fine.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
great.
I would do the fingering. Remember that line?
I remember.
Oh
everything.
man, I love
remember everything
that. I
about
love
Alien
that. My brother saw that shit in the theater. I feel so bad.
But yeah, anyways, Alien, it's a excellent movie. There's lots of things to chew on in terms of how, like, the cinematography, lots to piece together in terms of its like symbolism and its themes. I think it's a very dense movie that's got a lot to offer, and it deserves its place in the pantheon of horror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Aaron.
Yeah, don't have much to say about it, but it's a very great horror movie, and it's a great movie to see how well they utilize a small set, and a small cast of characters. There's a lot of paranoia and claustrophobia within the movie, and it just heightens the atmosphere, which is already so good. It looks amazing. It's shot really well. I love the darkness, and like every shadow, you can just feel like there's some sort of presence in there, even though we don't see the alien until like much later. And I still think a lot of the practical effects hold up, especially like the chest burst scene. Like that shit is fucking wild to this day, and
It's
it's just so good. There's a lot of great performances. Sigourney Weaver this is the role that I guess made her iconic. I could be wrong though. She's been in a lot of great stuff. But yeah, this is the one that started it all. Started all of those cheap knockoffs, and started a trend within the industry. And it's great.
Yeah, I've seen this film at least like 3 or 4 times over the last, like, ever since I was like 14. But I never really like paid attention to it until like my second or third watch. I think this most recent watch would be my fourth watch, I believe. But yeah, it's a really great movie, honestly, and I really like struggle with movies like these sometimes that are like perceived as classics, especially in the sci-fi genre. I feel like a lot of them like sometimes just really fall short, but things like Blade Runner and this and The Thing, like they all fucking rock. And speaking of The Thing, what Vinny said about the characters bouncing off each other, and it's just about like how not a lot is explained, and it's more about like the characters bouncing off each other, and there's a lot more about it's a lot more about the finer details. The finer details clue you into the world and the characters. Very Thing-esque in that regard. I feel like The Thing is a lot more. I mean, yeah, obviously there are differences, but I think in some regards it's very familiar. Yeah, I also really forget how atmospheric this film is. There's just so much time devoted to atmosphere, and I love it. Like the fucking production design is incredible. I love
Yeah.
I just love the ambiance that this ship has. It feels like it feels rickety and crickety and like broken in ways. Like I mean, obviously that's one of the plot points, but like it in ways like even when it's fixed, it still looks like it's operating through tape and spit. Like it looks so rickety, and it kind of adds to the stress because like there's just alongside the ship, there's obviously like an alien roaming around, but it feels just like an on the offset, like off the bat, it feels like an unsafe environment, and I really love that part of it. And despite Ridley Scott's recent directorial efforts being quite House of Gucci, uh, movies like this and Blade Runner prove that he had like a ton of talent back then. I'm hard pressed to find a Ridley Scott movie that I enjoy now, like being released in the last 20 years. But I really enjoyed what he had going back in the 70s and 80s when he made this and Blade Runner, and I've heard good things about The Duelist, so I'll check that out someday. But yeah, it's despite maybe a couple of criticisms, I think this movie's awesome, and I certainly love it a lot more in the grand scheme of like 70s horror than a lot of other classics than that people praise. I feel like this one is easily one of the best ones. So, yeah.
Well, if we want to sort of talk about like the ambiguity of like how the all the chess pieces are like set up with the space jockey and all that stuff, we kind of want to like bounce off a little bit on that. Like, what do you think do you think that's what my interpretation of that whole thing with the space jockey is that it shows that like this is an organism that undergoes through a cycle essentially, and it's
Mhm.
that another thing that I think what makes the xenomorph specifically so scary in this film is that it's an animal it can't be reasoned with, and it also can't be shot because it bleeds acid. So like you're
Yeah.
basically fucked.
Whoops.
Like
Yeah, I
and
agree.
it just keeps going through ship to ship to ship, and it just keeps spreading all over. It's like a
Yeah.
parasite, and that's what makes that
Mhm.
so scary.
Yeah,
Also,
there's
there's
always like
the
the question. Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
and there's also the other thing that's really terrifying is all the allusions to rape and sexual assault that's very prevalent in the like the way
Oh
the
yeah.
xenomorph like
Yeah.
Yeah.
reproduces and all
Yes.
that stuff. It's disgusting. Like
Yeah, it's pretty fucked.
Especially when you, like, look back on Lambert's, like, death scene where she's, like, backing up against the wall, like, sobbing, like, basic begging for her life and stuff. Like, that scene is, like, I think one of the most, like, terrifying death scenes out of, like, this
Yeah.
movie, maybe besides Kane's, you
mm,
know? But,
Yeah.
like, just the fact that she's begging for her life to this, like, animalistic creature that, doesn't understand this concept of begging, like, that's just terrifying.
I think that's incredibly clever because they don't show a lot of the deaths that happen,
Mhm.
but we only get like a little look at the alien, but we can sort of tell like the kind of damage you can do. And yeah, we get that more in like later movies that suck a lot more. But you know, but you know that I also agree Lambert's death is actually quite fucking terrifying because A, we get attached to the character. Like
Yeah.
I felt attached to her in some way even though she honestly she might be one of the weaker characters, I still felt some sort of attachment and some sort of like, "Oh god, please don't die" feeling for her, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that begging aspect is so freaky, and it also, like, I just love how literally one of the most terrifying deaths in the movie is one that we don't even see. Like, it's all just screams in the background, and that's, like, a lot of the deaths, but they're still effective because our mind interprets what's going on based on what we know about the alien and what we can hear from the screams. Like,
mhm.
you know, yeah. And yeah, it is pretty fucking scary that you can't really kill this thing or shoot this thing without essentially doing harm to yourself or others or the ship, you know?
Yeah. And you see that a lot in, like, the second movie where
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I'm not gonna, like, talk about the second movie, but you see that a
No, no,
lot
no,
where,
you're
like,
good.
your actions have consequences when trying to defeat
Yeah.
this thing.
Yeah. And
There's a lot of
characters
like
aren't just like
I'm sorry.
idiots. They like make distinct like consistent decisions that are like that make
Yeah.
sense in the context of their
Yes.
characters. They aren't just morons. Cough cough Prometheus. Uh
No, and, like, I'm also thinking of, like, the scene from fucking Covenant where Billy Crudup's character just allows this random android who's he just only met only because he saved his life, is like, "Hey, come into this room full of eggs and stick your face in one for me, please. It'll be funny. Do it for the
yeah.
vine. Do
Do
it,
do
bro.
it for the
Just do it.
gram.
Exactly.
Do
Yeah.
it for the grant." Like, and then he fucking dies, and it's like, "Oh, no shit." But, like, like, everyone on the Nostromo is actually like, "Hey, we are in groups of at least 2. Check in at every opportunity you can." And it's like, holy shit, they're actually making
Yeah.
decisions that are
Yeah.
Yeah.
make sense, especially because they know how this ship works. And it's
Yeah.
not like, it's
The air
just
is breathable. Let's take our helmets off.
that's so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I I just
I'm
hate
afraid
that
of a
shit.
corpse. Let me stick my hand towards a snake.
Like, what the fuck? Like, like, it's just so
Those
sad to
guys
see how
it
the
makes what makes it worse in Prometheus is the characters in Prometheus are literally, like, supposed to be, like,
yeah,
scientists
they're
who are
scientists,
intelligent.
yeah.
In
Yeah.
this the engineers in Alien are smarter than the actual scientists in this universe. Like
They're basically space truckers. That's what they are
yeah,
in this yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they are. They're returning from, like, a mining job. Like,
yeah,
they're fucking, like, hard labor workers. Like, that's what they
yeah.
are.
That's the other thing I
You
like
know?
about the movie is the allusion to, like, the working class sort of being just thrown off to the side, like, their well-being just for the sake of, like,
Yeah.
a larger corporation's needs and, like, necessities. And that was the other thing, like, the first time I watched it when I was, like, super, super young, I was, like, criticizing, like, how Ash kept making dumb decisions just for the sake of it, but then upon, like, the rewatch, you're like, oh shit, no, it's because he's literally programmed to do this by the company.
Yeah.
Because of that reveal that he turns out to be an android is just so creative and fun. Like,
Mhm.
Ian Holm is so fucking creepy.
yeah,
He's
for real.
fucking awesome.
He played that
is
shit really
easily
well.
the second
Yeah.
he's easily like he might be he like ties for best performance of the movie for me with Sigourney
Yeah.
Weaver. Like may even be better at some points. Like just the way that he talks, it all feels so calculated. Like I feel like every single word he says, he's like, this is the best option to further manipulate the crew. This is what I have to do. And then when he fucking
Yeah.
snaps, it's so like fucking like when he gets hit in the face and he's like whirling like wriggling around like that, and he's
Yeah,
like
dude.
fucking squirming. That shit
Yeah.
freaked me out when I first saw it. Like I did
Yeah.
not expect that when I first saw it, and then he like
Disgusting.
starts spitting out milk and shit, and I was like, oh well, that
Yeah, I was
part's
just
weird,
like,
but what the fuck
gross.
ever, man. It still hits. Like
Yeah.
yeah, and like it still hits hard, you know.
That moment
And
before actually has my one issue I take with the film, and it's a very minor nitpick, but it is
Yeah.
like a problem I have. It's how like after he like knocks out Ripley, Ian Holm, he takes the magazine and he crumbles it up into like a tube and tries to
Yeah.
like strangle her with it. Now that on its own is like fine. He's like malfunctioning, so obviously he would do some weird shit, and it also alludes to like more of the sexual assault themes. But the fact that like she actually starts suffocating from just like a magazine being put over her mouth, is
Yeah,
just
that's a
very
little weird.
strange. I get what they were trying to do, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why doesn't she just breathe through her nose? Like, I'm just
Or
like,
why
you know,
didn't she just breathe through the obvious, like, you know, obviously when you roll a magazine up into a tube
yeah,
right in
there's
the
still like a
middle,
hole in the
there's
tube.
still a hole. Like she could still technically a little bit breathe through her mouth. But
Yeah.
yeah, it still doesn't. I mean, yeah, that does like bug me a little bit, but it still like
Yeah, it doesn't ruin the
doesn't
movie for
negate
me
the
at all.
effect. Yeah, exactly. And I also love just the lack of music at times. Like when they're first exploring the new ship and you're just getting shots of the crew on the inside and the inside of the Nostromo, and then the crew outside on the planet. It's all just like you're hearing the wind, you're hearing the sounds of the ship. And I also love that juxtaposition where there's like when they cut to outside, there's just pure chaos and wind, and just it's so loud and like it assaults your ears. And then when it
Yeah.
cuts to them in the Nostromo, it's almost like deafening silence. It's like I love that cut a lot. It was a really like I feel like that was really purposeful, you know.
Yeah, the sound design
And
in the movie is really great.
yeah, and also the fucking size of the ship when they go into it on the planet, like holy shit, it's like massive, and like I love the design of it, and it just looks incredibly impressive, and I also really love the what's it called? I wrote it in my notes, but I'm trying to find it. Oh yeah, the the space effects like are kind of charming for the time. Like I remember when I watched Aliens, I'll get obviously I'm not gonna like start a conversation about aliens, but a brief little thing about it. Like that's one of my criticisms against Aliens, but in Alien, the stiffness of space, even though it looks weird, it's kind of charming, even if it makes the effects look weird. You know what I mean? Obviously,
Yeah.
2001 came out like 10 years before, so obviously I can't praise these space effects too much because 2001 did like blew every movie out of the water 10 years before. So yeah.
I think also this movie had like a really good like foreshadowing as well because when the movie begins and they're in the hypersleep, Kane was the first one to wake up, and he's like groggy, and I'm trying to remember who it was that said it. I think it was Parker who said like, "Man, you look like death." And then
Oh,
later on, Kane was the first one to actually die, and I actually like that foreshadowing because you don't think anything about it on like your first watch, but on the second time that I saw this, I was like, "Oh, that's actually kinda cool." I don't know if they, like, purposely did that or if it just so happened to, like, line up, But I actually really liked that foreshadowing of his death, being the first one to wake up and then being, like, the first to die.
I agree, and I also love the music during that scene. It's
Mhm.
probably the most memorable piece in the movie.
yeah, we got my boy Jerry Goldsmith.
What else did he
He
score? I don't know off the top of my head.
he did the score for Mulan and like a bunch of the Star Trek movies. So
Oh, Mulan. Okay. I'm not shitting on Mulan, but that movie actually has a decent music from
he
what I
also did
remember.
he did a bunch like Planet of the Apes. He did Chinatown, Gremlins, Total
Oh, well,
Recall.
never mind.
Yeah,
Chinatown. Fuck yeah.
yeah.
Also,
Midtown.
I guess I shut up. I guess I guess I have like a little I guess I have like a little issue regarding the film, and it's kind of like I mean, I get okay. I'm pretty sure that this is like explainable within the company's ethics in the film, but like that weird rule regarding what happens when intelligent life is contacted, like
Hmm.
they have to check it out right away. Like, what if it's a message saying, "Hey, don't come down here. There's a deadly fucking disease or something." Like, obviously they took time to like decipher it, and even then it sounded like a warning, apparently, like warning people to stay away. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how that rule is like, oh, you have to check it out regardless. And it's like, what if it's literally like a planet-killing virus that just people are trying to warn others about? I
Well,
don't I
yeah,
don't know.
they have like quarantine like regulations as well. So
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
those are
that's true.
But I also like
Yeah.
how Vinny had mentioned that like Ash was basically like programmed to be, like kind of like not really care about like the lower caste workers and stuff. So when Ripley was like, "Wait, no, we can't break quarantine protocols and stuff. He has to be quarantined until we know that he's fine." And Ash is like, "You know what? Screw it. Just bring him onto the ship. I could care less, you know?" You know how when Vinny brought up how like
yeah,
Ash is basically programmed really not to care
Mhm.
about like the lower class workers and stuff because that's how the company programmed him.
Mhm.
I just remembered how Ash was the first one to be like, you know what? No, I'm letting them in. I don't care. Kind of, I'll figure
Yeah.
it out myself. I
yeah.
kind of
He's
like
also
that part.
he also like when the chest burster scene happens, there's that moment where I think it's what's it Dallas is his name, I think. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
captain of the
he
ship?
like yeah, the
Yeah.
captain, he goes after the xenomorph with a knife, and then
Hmm.
immediately Ash is like, "No, don't touch it. Don't touch it." Like
Right.
and that's what
Yeah.
I think what helps benefit it on the second watch is like when it's like one of those movies that where you like if you watch it again and you just pay attention to Ash, like all the decisions he makes in like the first hour and a half of the movie, they have a completely different context when you know that he's like an android who's programmed to bring back any alien life forms and all other protocols are null and void basically. Like once they have that he
Mhm.
has that programming in him.
He might honestly be my favorite character because clearly, like, all the subtle effort, the efforts to be subtle clearly went into his character the most. Like, everyone else is pretty straightforward, but it feels like Ash has the most, like, dimension to him in ways, even though he's literally the only person on board aside from the alien who's not even human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He honestly might be my favorite character in that regard.
I was
No,
just
you're
gonna
good.
say that the actor who played Ash did a really good job of like playing like this non-humanoid person. Like on your first watch when
Uh-huh.
you see it, you're like you notice that he's a little off and he's a little weird, and then once you realize that he's an android and stuff, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I just think
Yeah.
the actor did a really good job of playing someone uncomfortable.
Yeah, I love that actor. His name is Ian Holm. He's done a
Bilbo.
lot of like yeah,
He's
Bilbo. Yeah, he
Bilbo.
was Bilbo
Yeah.
Baggins in Lord of the Rings, and he also played that one character in Naked Lunch. He's been
Oh
like a lot of
yeah.
stuff. He never really plays starring cast, but he's always like one of the side characters, and he's usually one of the best parts of like the movies he's in because he's a great actor. I wish he got more I wish he got more starring stuff, so he could like
Yeah.
really like shine in the spotlight. But I mean, in every movie he's in that I've seen from him, he's had like time to be, dynamic. He was also in Brazil. I remember him in Brazil.
Yeah. No, yeah,
Um,
I think he's
yeah.
left behind a pretty solid legacy, I think.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
no, for
for his
sure, for
character.
sure. Is he? Oh, yeah, he did
Yeah,
pass
Yeah,
away
he
somewhat
he passed
recently,
away
yeah.
like back in 2020. Yeah.
Oh, fuck, damn it.
Oh well.
Oh, well. Yeah, I really do love him in most of the things I see him in. Also I want to talk about like the effects for the aliens. The face hugger is probably the one that I would say is since it's gotten more time in the spotlight. I mean, the alien is seen in darkness more often. I feel like the
mhm,
face hugger is seen in the light most often, compared. So I feel
yeah,
like that effect stands out to me as the most effective effect because that fucking thing will never fail to creep me the fuck out. I
Yeah.
hate that little
Yeah.
puppet.
It feels like a living thing, like
It
how it
does.
like the sweat from it like glistens in the
Oh,
light. It's
ugh.
disgusting.
I know.
And when he
Just the
like
overall
touches it
design
and
of
it
it.
spazzes, like, oh, it's so fucking
Mhm.
gross.
I think the
Yeah.
or not chest burster, but the face hugger may honestly be my favorite like alien. Like I know it's like a xenomorph at like a young age, but I think that's my favorite stage of like the alien, you know, like the face hugger, because that's like the very first thing that we see. And you know when like the egg opens up and it's like slow and creepy, you know, and it's just like all of a
hmm
sudden like this thing just jumps onto you, you know, and it's terrifying.
Also, like, it kind of contrasts with the chest burster, which is an effect that looked good at the time, but nowadays it's like very clearly a puppet. I mean,
Mhm.
it doesn't at all ruin the scene. Don't like trust me. I love like that scene as a whole, like with Kane being okay, like it lulls you into a false sense of security. And I love how they don't
Yeah.
dwell on it for too long. Like they do get into it pretty quickly, but they linger just long enough for you to feel like, "Oh, maybe Kane's really just like maybe he's feeling a little better," and then he fucking dies. And John
Mhm.
Hurt's spaz acting was fucking horrifying. It
Oh
was really
yeah.
hard to like watch him like scream and like almost have like a seizure on the fucking table. Like it was so difficult to watch,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I
Especially
think
when everyone's around him. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, no,
yeah.
no, you're right. When everyone's around him, like acting just
Yeah.
as freaked out.
Like you said before, Xander, another thing that helps to sell that scene is the absence of the score during that entire bit. Like,
Yeah,
there's no music during that entire the scene is scored by John Hurt screeching at the top of his lungs, basically, and
literally.
like the disgusting like sound effects from like the propping up and like the screeching from the chest burster. But yeah, overall,
hmm
I do think the weakest aspect of that scene is definitely the actual chest burster puppet, because
hmm
there's been better looking versions of the chest burster, and also it is kind of the thing about the chest burster scene is that I saw Spaceballs before I saw Alien, so the first time I saw it, I immediately thought of the scene where John Hurt cameos in Spaceballs. I mean, yeah, but it is kind
I
of
know.
funny that, and he like starts singing like the frog dance, like, he's like, "Hello,
Hello,
my
my
baby."
baby. Hello, my honey.
Yeah, obviously the scene
Fuck
on its
yeah.
own still works like brilliantly. It's just the puppet, you know.
Absolutely. It really is one of the most iconic horror movie scenes for a reason.
Yeah. And I also like that this is a horror
No, sorry.
movie where the pet doesn't fucking die. Like,
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah,
refreshing compared to the thing where all of the dogs get violently murdered.
literally
Oh
everybody
yeah.
dies. Yeah, saw that shit in the theater very recently. What a fucking great experience.
Yeah.
Ooh. I
It
did
was
too, yeah.
it was awesome. Yeah.
Fantastic
My
experience.
my
I would love to
Fathom
see
event
Alien in the theater.
my Fathom event didn't screw up my screening of the thing. Let's go.
Lucky bastard.
I know. I feel so bad that a lot of people apparently just had a shitty time with it.
Hey, I got a free movie ticket for another movie, and I'll get to use it at some point.
Nice, nice. Yeah. I don't really have a lot more to say. I think that kind of covers it. It was like it really there is a lot to say about, the allegory of sexual
Mhm.
assault in the working class, but it's also just a movie that stands, on
Yeah.
its own
You know,
merits.
H.R. Giger, that motherfucker, just hitting
That
us with
fucking freaky dude.
amazing character design for the alien. Here's something I learned. Apparently, the reason that the alien, like all these designs in the film, are so like extreme like this. Apparently, is it Giger or Geiger? I've heard two different
I've
pronunciations.
heard both. I've heard both. I don't really know if either one is truly correct.
Yeah. But what I heard about this, I'm not sure if this is true, but I have heard that the H.R. Giger had night terrors, so, and he would keep his sketchbook next to his bed. So whenever he would
Oh.
wake up after having a nightmare, he would just sketch whatever he saw in his like dreams. So like
Oh,
I really like that idea that the xenomorph is literally made from nightmares. Like,
Wow.
I think it's H.R. Giger. That's what
mm,
that's what all these Google searches are saying.
gotcha.
Yeah. But
I
yeah,
also
there's also like a story with him working on apparently like Hodorowski's Dune movie, but that's a whole
Yeah,
nother conversation.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure he used like some of those like sketches in Alien, right?
Yeah, he used the sketches that he was going to use for Dune in Alien. What a great documentary! I gotta watch that again.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute since I've seen that movie. I gotta rewatch it.
Mhm.
Dunk.
Especially after seeing
Dunk.
Denis Dune.
All right. Do we have anything else to say about Alien?
Alien.
I think just to finish it off, like this is just me. I honestly think this movie has like the best tagline ever. You know, like the "In space, no one can
Definitely.
hear you scream." Like
Yes.
I
Mhm.
love that tagline so much. Like
Mm.
like I think it
Simple.
may be one of my favorite taglines.
Very simple, and it's a fact.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah.
I that reminded me of something. I always think of this really. I found this picture on Google Images that my friend sent me a bunch of years ago. That was
Mhm.
somebody made a bootleg version of the Alien poster on their T-shirt, and it just says
Oh my god.
it says Alan, and the tagline is "In space, no one can hear you in space." And I just always think of
I fucking
What?
love that. I've seen that before. It's so funny.
Alan.
Oh my god.
Damn, they butchered that shit.
Fucking hilarious. I love that shit. Nikki,
Good
why don't you
movie.
give us your closing thoughts on Alien, and then we'll just go back in the same order, and then we'll start the other movie.
All right. I would say this is probably one of my favorite horror movies, honestly. I'm a really big fan of horror, and I think they did a really good aspect with that. You know, like the feeling in deep space and knowing that there's nowhere to escape from this creature, that you're just doomed, basically.
Mhm.
But yeah, I honestly really love this movie. For anyone who's trying to get into like the horror genre, I would definitely recommend this movie. Yeah, honestly, I guess that's all I have to say really about this movie. I gave this movie an 8.
Vinicio del Toro.
Aha.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So yeah, Alien is it's a classic. It's a classic movie. It deserves a lot of the hype it gets. I think there are very, very minor things that I have problems with it, and I brought those up, but they are not big enough for me to actively consider the film anything other than a really exceptional piece of sci-fi horror filmmaking. I think it is just overall a really fantastic movie. Yeah, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, in space, no one can hear you. Spaced by Edgar Wright. But yeah, this is probably the best Ridley Scott, kind of tied with Blade Runner. But
I like Gladiator.
boo. No, I'm just kidding.
Banned.
No, but this
I
is
like
really
The
great.
Martian.
House of Gucci. No, but
Last dual wipes.
this is a really great movie. It's a classic horror sci-fi that everybody needs to check out. You know, it's a staple in any film bro's journey, and
Yeah.
it's very enjoyable, very entertaining, very immersive. Once you get into just how just grueling it must have been to be in that ship. Like, damn, I know it's about crazy in there. Anyways, it's good. Yeah, I would give it an 8. 8 out of 10.
Yeah, it's a classic, but like it's also a classic that kind of does hold up today. Like if it got released today, it would still be hailed as like a new great, you know. And I really love just how like Aaron said, immersive and atmospheric this film is. Like there's just so much palpable atmosphere dripping in every single scene, you know. Yeah, I just said this movie got drip. No, yeah, it's fucking awesome. Every time I rewatch it, I'm like, I probably don't love it as much as I used to, and then I watch it and I'm like, fuck yeah, I still love it as much as I used to. I'm giving this one a solid 8. It's not a light or a strong 8. It'll forever probably be just a solid 8.
Nice. All right.
Now we move on to
Alien.
James Cameron's director of Titanic,
And Avatar 1,
Aliens,
2,
and
3,
Avatar 2.
4, 5.
5. Yeah. All right, we have Aliens. Nikki, your synopsis and basic thoughts whenever you're ready.
All right. So Aliens follows up after the first movie. where Ripley gets, rescued from deep space, only to find out that she's been asleep for 57 years.
Kind of a drag.
Yeah, so it's kind of really sad because she realizes everyone is dead, basically. But she is being sent to this colony along with other Marines to try to figure out if the colonists there are all right, because no one has sent any like messages in a while, so they want to go and check. Only to discover that the xenomorph problem has gone over to the colony. I thought this movie was fun. It was really different from the first movie, but I like that they didn't stick with just the same formula as the first one. I really loved the inclusion of Newt's character, because it really shows just how serious the xenomorph problem was, and that it just wasn't a problem for the Nostromo crew. I thought it was really fun, really action packed, and yeah, I really liked the movie.
We're just going the same order. I'll go last.
Yeah, just want to address the elephant in the room. Alien is better. I know everybody says that Aliens is better than Alien, but I don't agree.
Not.
I don't agree. Here's my thing.
Bad take.
Bad take. Aliens is a really, really good movie. It's got a lot to appreciate about it. I think it's got an incredibly well-made film. It is one of James Cameron's best, I think. It's probably like tied in between like The Abyss and like Terminator 2 for like his best films, I'd say. I think it's a movie that really it helps to expand on the world, but not always in the best way. I think the fact that it ups everything to 11 is kind of a detriment, but also like improvement over the story, because like if you want to tell a sequel to something like Alien, you kind of need to expand on stuff. And I like some of the stuff they expand on, but some of the other stuff isn't. Because like the first 30 minutes of the movie is basically just everybody is an idiot except for Ripley. And then the rest of the film is essentially just like boots on the ground, like Vietnam War allegory. And that's fun and all, but like, it's just kind of missing that spark that the first movie has a little bit. But the one thing I do think it improves a lot is Ripley's characterization. She isn't given even though I do like Ripley in the original movie, she's not all that complex of a character. And in the sequel, I think they gave her a lot more depth. Like I watched the director's cut specifically, and that helps to add that whole subplot of her like coming to terms with her daughter's death and sort of like adopting Newt as her like new family and sort of like coming to terms with that. I think it's very The Last of Us, But yeah, that's my overall thoughts on Aliens.
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie too. It's obviously not as good as the original, but there's still lots to appreciate here. I will say it did take me a while to get actually into the movie, because like you said, the first 30 minutes are just like people making the worst decisions and just lots of exposition and just lots of just like people explaining the world to us, expanding the world. And that's fine for the most part, but I think I just got exhausted after a while. But when they started bang bang shooty shooty the aliens, I started to pay attention more. But it's still enjoyable. It's still well made. James Cameron does what he does his best, and really captures the scope and spectacle of the world, and it looks great to this day. I think it's wonderfully shot, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, regarding characters I didn't like, I know it's a pretty popular one, but the child acting was pretty entertaining to say the least, but not in any good way. And like Vinny said,
that kid to the dogs.
Like Vinny said, I think Troy and Abed did it better. I just love the Community version too. So get away from her, you bitch. Anyways,
agreed. Get away from those hotties.
Yep, that's it.
I think we lost him, but if he comes back, I'm gonna need one or both of your phone numbers.
That's a fun show. Okay, Aliens is fine. I I realized I rated it on Letterboxd. I gave it a different rating than what I intended, but we'll just get to that later. But yeah, I watched this late at night last night, so all of what usually bugs me, I think it was kind of amplified a little bit. So what I really didn't like the first like 20 minutes fucking enraged me. I was like, "Oh my God, I do not remember this movie being this boring and this stupid. Like I do not
Yeah.
remember it being this poorly put together. What the fuck?" And then it got into the more the oorah semper fi, boots on the ground, like that shit. Like that was fun. I think that I get the characters are all stereotypes, but I think they're kind of aware of it. I think this movie is somewhat self-aware of what
Yeah.
it's doing.
Yeah,
I just
they kind of oh sorry.
yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah, the Marines, they're dynamic and like how they're characterized. It kind of reminds me of like the J Squad from the Tom Cruise movie Edge of Tomorrow. Like they're very like they're just like have like a bunch of like very distinct personality, and it's just very fun to watch them bounce off with each other. And that's I think what helps save the movie a little bit. Because like
I
it
agree.
starts off in that area, and then once the Marines are introduced, it starts getting better again, essentially.
Yeah, that's literally my thought. That's honestly like my thoughts on the structure. Once the soldiers are introduced, I started getting a lot more into it, even with the cheesy dialogue. Like honestly, I preferred that, but with character to the bullshit we had before. Like yeah, and you know, I think that the allegory of like whole like Nam, I was just kind of like, is that really necessary here? Like I get that what it's trying to do, but I kind of felt like it just was. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't feel cleverly implemented to me. Like in the first movie, it feels a lot more planned out and it feels a lot more surgical. This one is just like, oh, soldiers against technologically inferior enemy, Vietnam allegory. Like, come on, really? Like, is that just all that we do with that kind of story now? But yeah. I enjoyed it as it went along, but towards the end, yeah, I just stopped giving a shit. I just kind of like enjoyed it for the spectacle and for the fun of like, yeah, get away from her, you bitch. Like that stuff was all fun. And Lance Hendrickson carries this movie on his back so hard that I'm pretty sure he has chronic back problems now. But
he is contractually obligated to star in every James Cameron movie in the 80s and 90s.
Literally, and he's the best part of this movie for sure. Even better than Ripley in my eyes, but that's just me. I just don't. I'm sorry. I'm just not a fan of Sigourney's performance in this movie all that much. There are parts where she just delivers lines very poorly. I think Henriksen does the best job, and he's more entertaining than everybody else. I also love Bill Paxton, but that's just because I'm contractually obligated to like Bill Paxton and literally everybody and literally everything.
Game over, man.
We gotta do a Kistopia episode for the Spy Kids trilogy.
Oh my God, yeah, the Dinkster.
Somebody ring the Dinkster.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's a decent movie. I enjoyed it a lot more when I was younger. Nowadays, I'm more or less just okay with it. Like it exists. I'm fine with it. I'll probably watch it again, like as part of like a marathon of alien movies if I'm that sick in the head to do that and suffer through the shitty ones. But you know, whatever. It's fine. I think we should just move on to open floor because I really don't have a ton to say.
They fooled me, bro. I thought Vasquez was actually Mexican.
That
was really weird.
I looked it up. Apparently, she's of Brazilian descent, but it was still really fucking weird that they decided to like darken Jeanette Goldstein's they darkened Jeanette Goldstein's like skin.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
why? Literally every other line she says is just pendejo.
Yeah, literally.
That's literally like every other line she says. Oh, get it? Because she's Mexican.
It's
like, okay, nice. Sick flex. I don't know. Like what? Yeah.
This is the 80s. We got our strong female characters, but there's also brown face. So
we have one, but at what cost?
At the cost of I don't know, decent character development. Shit.
The tagline for this movie is also not as good as the original. Like the tagline is this time it's war. Like that's it. Okay.
I thought you said this time it's more.
Oh,
Well, I mean, that's
that would
literally
make
what
sense.
it's like. You contrast the title. It basically does what it says on the tin. It like alien. There's one alien.
Aliens.
Aliens. There's a
More.
quadrillion aliens.
There is at least
Alien
4.
2, Aliener.
Alien. Even
No,
more
there's a running-
alien.
There's a running joke I have with my high school friends where we come up with like fake movie sequels and we just be
Oh,
like
fuck yeah.
Shawshank Redemption 2, Andy in Vietnam, and this literally basically is Alien 2, Ripley in Vietnam, because the entire movie is essentially just like a Nam allegory. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. The other thing that's weird about this film is that they portray the xenomorphs as like smart at points, and like
Yeah.
the first film never really portrayed them as that. Like xenomorphs are animals.
They're animals.
They don't have like
yeah.
they're not like in like logical creatures that do things. They have like certain base like biological urges, but
I
like
mean-
in this one there's like contrast between like some of them are like very smart at point. It turns into
Mhm.
like the later seasons of The Walking Dead, you know? Like where
Literally.
it's like where like some of them are like sneaking up behind characters for some reason, or I'm just
Yeah.
like, all right.
That shit on
Yeah.
the ship with Starkmeyer and whatever the other girl's name was on the ship, like I was just like, wouldn't he just like he wouldn't give a shit about not making noise. They're not gonna kill him. Like he's literally one. He's snuck on the ship. He can literally just like scream his head off, but instead he's like sneaking in, walking on both like on 2 legs. It just looks weird. I mean, that argument would be fine if it were only the queen who's kind of like smart. Like that would
Yeah,
make sense.
that
That
makes
would make
because,
sense.
you know,
Yeah.
but like literally it's like for individual aliens here and there they're smart, and it's like no they're not. They serve a queen. They're literally a hive mind in ways. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. You know? I found it very inconsistent. It doesn't stop the action from being fun.
Yeah.
Like all the I think when they were in that honestly like probably the best scene in the movie was when they first enter the hive and they
Mhm.
see all the bodies. Like that scene kind of reminded me a lot of like what the original film was going for, you know? Like just the
Yeah.
atmosphere, no music, just like, you know, letting yourself be immersed in the fear and the anxiety of the situation.
Especially when they run into that survivor and she's
Mhm.
awake and she's begging for them to like kill her, and they're like, no, you're safe, you're fine, like everything's okay. And then like a few seconds later she's chest bursted, and that's when they realize they're in deep shit, you know?
Yeah, that scene was excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the one scene that like I truly like fuck yeah, like really love. Everything else I'm just
Mhm.
kind of like, yeah, it's fun. And then the mist ripped off that scene.
Oh my god, yeah, you're right, they did.
Even though the mist is much better than this movie.
I don't know, I'd say they're around like, well, The Mist is explicitly like going full like B movie. Like this is like doing
Yeah,
like
so yeah, that's true.
Well, it's 2 different types of B movies. Aliens is like doing like action schlock, and The Mist is doing like The Day the Earth Stood Still like type of shit,
Schlock.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't seen The Mist in a long time. I need to give it another watch. I need to watch the director's version of the movie.
Oh,
the
you've
black
never
and
watched the
white.
black and white version? The black and white
Yeah,
version is
I've only seen the
excellent.
color version.
If you watch it in
Black.
color, you're like, oh, they're taking this seriously. But then when you watch it in black and white, you're like, okay, never mind. Like,
Oh yeah. That's what I've heard. I'm really excited to watch it because
Yeah.
even with the color, I remember enjoying The Mist quite a bit. But
yeah, but does James Cameron direct it?
no, someone else who's better directed it. Director of Shawshank Redemption. Going back to Lance Hendrickson, this is a weird thing, but if this movie came out today, he would be played by Willem Dafoe.
Probably.
Doesn't he like look like Will? Like, doesn't he have like a Willem Dafoe energy to him sometimes? Like when he's like when he cut his finger on the knife at the dinner scene or at the lunch scene or whatever that scene was. Like there was like a head turn and then like a way he delivered a line. I was like, that was very Dafoe-esque. What the fuck? Like it was really weird. Yeah, it doesn't. Overall, I don't.
I love that knife game scene. It's just funny
Yeah.
to see Bill Paxton just scream at the top of his lungs.
Apparently, that was unplanned. Apparently, Bill Paxton did not know that was going to be happening. So, yeah, apparently, yeah. When he was going to start the scene, Lance Henriksen got the instruction to put his hand over Bill Paxton's and then do it with Bill Paxton. But
Oh, that's incredible.
yeah, but the Bill Paxton wasn't told, so the screams I guess are real. I don't I don't have any.
I mean,
I don't know.
that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. It's not funny, man. It's not a great performance. None of the performances are very great in my eyes, honestly. They feel a lot weaker in this film, except for Lance Hendrickson. Like, everybody just feels like a caricature. But obviously with the soldiers, that makes sense. But even Ripley, I just don't feel that performance until, like, her character arc comes in,
Yeah.
and it feels a lot more defined.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see her performance wise, but what I like about Ripley specifically is like them giving her a lot more dimension in this film, contrasted with the original movie. Like I think they give her that complexity. I don't know if you guys saw the theatrical or the director's cut, but
I
with
watched
that
directors.
yeah. I think her arc in the story is very similar to that of Joel's. I know I brought that up before, but like I think it's beneficial because and I think that works especially when you're going to do a sequel. Like you need to flesh out your character, especially in the first movie. We didn't really know anything about Ripley. We didn't really know anything about any of the characters, like in terms of backstory. But like I like the fact that the one survivor now has a little bit more to her.
Yeah, it honestly makes her character in Alien 3 seem, I guess, in ways defined. Because, like, in Alien, yeah, she was defined, but she was still, like, one of the engineers. She didn't even do really main character things until she became, like, the last person alive, you know?
Yeah, that's like the other thing that I liked about the first movie is basically like there was no main character until the end of the film. And like everybody, because Ripley is very much like one of those, she is like technically a final girl character in like the horror film. And then I think that's the thing that I also liked about like the James Cameron films in the 80s, like Aliens and Terminator 2 are basically taking the final girl and essentially turning her into like a badass.
Yeah,
It's much more
I
present.
agree.
It's definitely much more present in Terminator 2 because Sarah Connor goes through the ringer in that first film and she comes out like a strong, hardened, like incredibly damaged, like traumatized individual, but she did come out stronger out of it. But like this one is more just, like her relationship with the kid.
Yeah, that I agree with that. I just found the kid to be like one of the worst things about the movie. I hate that fucking twerp. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know that like people love her sometimes and I'm just like I can't. She's no. She didn't just no. I just don't. I found like the performance is like really bad. Like sometimes when she's not speaking it's fine because whatever, but like when she does speak, like that first line where she's like, "They're dead, all right, can I go now?" I'm like, the fuck was that? It was really bad. I just never believed her when she was talking, but when she was silent and she was sitting there, like it was fine. But like aside from that, I just wasn't a fan. Ironically, the one character that I hate the most is not the character I should hate the most, aka Paul Reiser. I should hate him with a burning passion, but to me, I'm like, yeah, that's what his character would do if he was in that scenario. I don't feel cheated out like that. I also kind of like how the dude from Shawshank Redemption is in this movie.
Oh yeah, the rapist.
Yeah. The happy-go-lucky fun dude.
Yep.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
God.
That's such a, yeah. He's a bad character.
My biggest issue with the film is definitely like the final scene is just like not I don't have an issue with essentially like my friend from Ithaca essentially had a similar complaint where it was like it's just the end of the first movie again, and I'm like I don't have an issue with that specifically like in concept, but the way it's done doesn't make any sense because it's built around the fact that Ripley is able to like hold back the vacuum of space by hooking her arm around a fucking metal grate.
Yeah,
and the
she would be
falls out
dead.
like immediately. No, and not only her, but Newt too, and like Bishop as well. Like all three of them survive. The giant queen xenomorph isn't able to hold on to a person's leg for like more than like 5 seconds.
Whoops.
It's really dumb.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't I really just don't have a lot to say. A lot of it is just like just jokes, honestly. I just don't vibe with this movie very much. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's fine. It's a decent action movie, like, but the writing and the script, it all feels so lackluster compared to the first movie. And yeah, the allegory aspect just feels more tacked on, you know? It kind of feels like, hey, we just realized what this kind of fits up with. Let's make it a Vietnam allegory kind of thing. Like that's what it kind of feels like instead of with Alien, the first one, where it feels like, yeah, they're doing this thing to fit the allegory rather than we're fitting the allegory to what they're doing. You know, it feels like the allegory came after the filming, you know what I mean? Instead of the allegory before the filming. Because when you film around the allegory, it feels a lot more purposeful. But if you fit an allegory to something that you didn't intend, it feels sloppy. And I feel like that's what this movie does. It fits it simply because it fits. You know, I feel like without it, it would have felt maybe more focused and you know. But I don't know. It's just not a. I remember really enjoying this movie when I was younger, but I guess it just now I'm a lot older, I just don't feel that same vibe. It's been like 5 years since I've seen it, and I'm just like not a fan. We're not a huge fan. But I still appreciate it because the production design is still fucking phenomenal. The sets, the costumes, the violence
Yeah.
is really satisfying. Like it's there is a lot here that I really appreciate, but I think that like overall what it serves is just something that comes out as a weaker endeavor compared to the first one, obviously. I would rather just rewatch the first one and then never watch any of the other Alien movies ever again. And then watch Prometheus and then laugh my fucking ass off at how bad it is. I don't have much more to say about Aliens. Anybody else? Nikki, do you have anything?
With the ending, if once you realize what happens in the next movie, it's really heartbreaking and really sad because Ripley's the only one that survives again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I fucking
only
hate that
kid-
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big fuck you to the audience. Yeah.
And like the only and she realized that she lost her daughter in the beginning of the movie, has a new and is like, okay, you know what, I can adopt you and we can be like mother and daughter. But nope. She dies in like a terrible way and stuff.
Nope, directed by Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, it's like that ending, like once you realize what happens in the next movie, it's just truly heartbreaking because it's like Ripley thinks her life can finally somewhat go back to normal. And it's like, nope, fuck you, audience. She's gonna be the only survivor again.
David Fincher single-handedly ruined the Alien franchise and then made 7.
I always forget that David Fincher directed Alien 3, and that was his first movie.
Alien 3 from the director of 7, The Social Network, and fucking Zodiac.
Oh my god.
It's like his whole career is like, okay, I fucked up. Here's my filmography just to make up for that shit. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah, basically, like he's talked about, hasn't he talked about Alien 3 a lot? And he's just like, yeah, I don't really count that.
Yeah, he doesn't count it as one of his movies, which honestly, you know what? Fair. I won't count it
wouldn't.
either if he doesn't.
I wouldn't.
I sure as fuck wouldn't. I meant to watch a couple more of the Alien movies for this conversation. I wanted this to be more of like an Alien series combo, like Prometheus and Covenant, because I really want to shit on how bad those movies are. But I mean, like, I just honestly, after talking about those the two like good decent ones, I just don't feel fucking pointless. Like I don't want to give those movies any more attention than they deserve. Like fuck it. We all know they suck eggs. Why would we shine a spotlight on that and can encourage more people to watch it? Of course, I realize just by saying that people are going to be like, "Oh, they say it's bad." I say, acknowledging that we may have an audience.
I still
I don't
haven't
know.
seen Alien 3, just so I can say I never seen a bad Fincher movie.
Oh, that's a flex. I don't know. I assume we
Wait,
have an
Mank.
audience. We
No,
have
I'm
at
just
least
kidding.
3. Mank, fucking Mank.
Yeah, Aliens is nowhere
at least,
near.
At least Mank is like really well put together in terms of filmmaking.
Oh, definitely.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
A very technically impressive film. I just think the story is not very good. Okay, we need to stop and we need to rate Aliens before we start talking about David Fincher.
Oh god.
We're threading the needle and we're gonna get sucked into a huge vacuum because when you talk about one Fincher, you gotta talk about the rest of them. So, Nikki, closing thoughts and rating. What do you got? Go.
Okay. Um, kind of like what I just said in the beginning. This movie was fun, you know. The set design in this one was incredible. Um, yeah, honestly, I I don't know what to say honestly about this movie. There's not a lot. We really discussed a lot of it. So yeah, I'm just gonna say I like this movie and I'm gonna give it a 7.
Venereal disease? No, I don't know. That's mean. I tried coming up with a new nickname that was bad. Go ahead, Vinny.
Yeah, so yeah, Aliens. Um, good movie. Pretty well made. I like the character stuff. Even the characters weren't like super complex. They're very fun to watch. They're very like it's a very watchable film. It's got a lot of great set pieces, but the plot is not nearly as good as the first film, and I think the themes are not as good. And it's just structurally, I think the first movie just succeeds in a lot more ways than this one does. I'm going to give it a very, very generous 8 out of 10. Probably, you know what? I'm changing that. I'd strong 7 to light 8. I think
Vincent Gallo. Why didn't I call you
Nice.
that? Fuck.
that was basically one of my namesake. That was basically like one of my reasons I was named Vincent by my parents is because they
What?
named me. They named me after a bunch of famous Vincents. They love they fucking love Buffalo 66.
I am never gonna let you live this down. You know
Oh,
that, right?
God.
I am going to bring this up at every opportunity that I can. And now that you said it, it's on the internet forever. Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, in spirit of everybody lowering their scores, I think I might lower my score too. I don't know. It's just like the more I think about it, it's just I don't really remember a whole lot of it. It's been a while. I mean, it's been like a few months since I watched it, but it's a fine movie. It's not bad, but no, it's nowhere near Cameron's best either. But it's still enjoyable. Fuck the kid, but
Fuck
yeah.
Man, fuck them kids, bro.
Fuck them kids, bro. It's good, very enjoyable. Bang bang, shooty alien. Good stuff. I would give it a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's kind of in between there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. In the spirit of lowering scores, I'm gonna do it too. Yeah, I originally gave this a 7 when I first saw it, and I thought it would stick, but I kind of just went like, nah, it's kind of just not gonna be that. I'm gonna give this a solid 6. It's just a lot weaker than the first movie. I feel like the technical elements are able to elevate it above what I would maybe rate it if they were worse, you know what I mean? Like, I think the technical elements really still are great, and the action really is fun. Like, it's hard to be bored during this movie aside from the first 20 minutes. It really is difficult. Like, I have to actively try, or I have to be like fucking falling asleep in order to be bored while watching this. But the substance of the original just way overshines this movie. It feels paper thin in comparison. So yeah, I'm gonna give this a solid 6 out of 10. That's my final rating for Aliens. Sorry. Good combo.
Let's go.
That was fun. Hell yeah.
Fun.
Feels good to be back. Nikki, good recommendations.
Thank you.
Very
Hell
good
yeah.
recommendations.
Yeah. I'm glad I revisited Alien with a more like paying attention mindset. Yeah. All right. Now we move on to the last segment, aka the next episode. What are we talking about next? I teased it, and at the last second, I changed it. So I am not talking about the one that I built up for like fucking 3 months. That is no longer happening. That'll happen someday, though, because that is one of my favorite movies, and I do want to discuss it. But I'm doing something else. I want to discuss something that kind of fits in with what I've been into lately, and it's still one of my all-time favorite movies. It's easily in the top 20, I think. It's an incredible classic that a lot of people just haven't, like, a lot of people in the mainstream haven't seen. but a lot of people but a lot of people who are like us who watch like foreign movies, they love it and think it's a classic. So the 1960s samurai movie by Masaki Kobayashi. I'm recommending Harakiri.
Ooh.
Yes.
Me and Aaron watched it together on a call somewhat recently, as of like maybe a few months ago, and then apparently his Blu-ray is coming. So I want him to, so it kind of fits, you know. And it's a movie that I knew I was going to talk about on this podcast, like while I was watching it with Aaron. I was like, this is going to happen someday. So why not next episode? Harakiri, one of my all-time favorite films. So
Nice.
if you have not seen it, watch it. And for those of you watching, if you have not seen it and you want to be up to date for the next episode, which shall be coming out in 2027, I'm kidding. Watch it and be up to date, I guess. And then we'll talk about it next episode after that. And after this one, next episode, Harakiri.
Yes.
Very excited. Very excited. Want to talk about this so bad. I have a lot to say.
Alrighty, folks, you heard the man. Watch the movie. And thank you for watching.
This is not an option. This is an order. This is a threat.
Goodbye.
I know where you live. Bye.